What's going on, everybody? Joe Cardoza here from Team MBS Media. I want to welcome you guys to another exciting episode of Hello, My Name Is. I am super excited to talk to our next guest, somebody who's been a supporter of Team MBS Media literally since day one. It's been a while, so a catch-up session was long overdue. So at this time, I want to bring to the stage our guest for today.
Hello, my name is Mystique Ro. I'm a USA skeleton athlete.
What's going on, Mystique? How you been doing?
I've been doing pretty good. Been pretty busy, been traveling a lot and training, so it's nice to settle down for a breather and catch up.
No, I definitely can imagine. So I kind of want to talk about how you got into becoming a skeleton athlete. I know that you did college track and field. So can you talk a little bit about maybe a short little bit about your college track and field career and then how you made that transition to where you are now?
Yeah, so I started track in high school, and eventually I was working to try to get onto a collegiate team to also go to school. My avenue was hurdling, so I got in for hurdles, but I also picked up doing multi, so being a tathlete. So from there, I started to build the strength, build the speed, and eventually got me to the point where I was at the end of my track career at the collegiate level. And one of the existing pilots for bobsled reached out to coaches across the country asking for recruits. And so from there, I was intrigued enough to, sure, why not? Let's go try it out. So I went to a rookie combine. I did decent enough to get called back. And then they brought me up, and my intention was bobsled. And they were like, well, maybe you should do skeleton because you're on the smaller side. So I tried skeleton, and originally I was not really liking it, but eventually started growing me. And in the beginning, from the jump, we realized that my hurdling background was actually a really big asset to my push, which was very helpful for the obviously the results of a race. So that was something I really lead into. So my track career in college really propelled me and prepared me well for transitioning to skeleton.
Now, my next question would be, I have somebody who watches all the Olympic events. I'm that guy that's watching curling at 3 o'clock in the morning Eastern time and knows who the best players are in that. Skeleton is terrifying to me when I watch it. I mean, we're talking about it's like millimeters of your face above the ice. Any kind of mistake could result in a catastrophe. Can you talk a little bit about that initial, those first couple of months of you doing the sport? And did you have those moments where you were like, hey, not only do I think this might not be for me, but is this safe type of deal?
Yeah, so after the rookie push championships, I finished in the top three for skeleton. So they invited me back for a driving school that November. So this is November 2016. And they take us to about halfway up the track. So you're going about 30 miles an hour, 35. And I went down. I was like, oh, this is not for me. I'm done. This is dumb. This is not for me. But I gave myself the truck ride up to settle and kind of think about it. I'm like, well, it wasn't terrible. It was a little interesting. So the next run, because I did go again, I decided to try to I picked one thing to focus on to try to make better. And eventually it starts to become a game. You start to want to do more and more. But then it gets to a point where it's like, oh, we're going fast and it's going well. And then occasionally there's a point where you might not be prepared. You might try something different. It doesn't work out. So there's been plenty of times where I've left the track with covered in bruises, purple, black, blue, some cuts. As you mentioned, the ice is our chin is this much off the ice. So we do get bruised up pretty bad here. Sometimes it gets swollen, so it's very uncomfortable. And I would always say that anyone who says they're not afraid is not telling the truth, because I think you're always going to have those butterflies in some capacity. And I think it's more of how do you tame them? How do you make them work for you? So sliding itself and skeleton, because we are so exposed and so low to the ice, it's a controlled chaos. So you have to be willing to let go and just let it flow. But you also have to still set it up. So there's still some input involved, but the more input you have, that's more tension on the sled, it's more friction, it's more inhibiting the sled. You want to let it do as much as it can on its own. So you're essentially just kind of suggesting and setting it up, and then kind of that's a very difficult thing to do when you're going 70 miles an hour. You have to let go of control and hold on for the ride.
Now, you're a very competitive person, just like I am, and I use the example of myself like golf. I don't play it a lot, but when I play it, the way I get so angry about a missed shot or something not going the way I want to, you would think I play it all the time. That's just a competitor in me. How are you able to adapt to, okay, this is a brand new sport. I'm not going to be top 3 day one, but work through the progression of you becoming to the level you are now? Like, what were some of the things you did to make yourself be like, hey, you know what? I'm being too hard on myself. Let me take a step back. I'm still learning, and not just be that person that's, what do you mean I'm not in first place to a brand new sport you just became a member of?
So I think for me, when I first started out, I didn't have any high expectations of myself. The only thing I knew that I was good at in the sport was the push component. So that was in the bag. So I didn't know I have to really necessarily work on it to like make it anything astronomical. I could just maintain it. So the driving was the problem. So I didn't have much experience there. So I knew I could back off my push to give me more opportunity to learn driving the sled on down different tracks at a more controlled speed, more workable speed. And for me, I never was necessarily obviously you're competitive, you see your teammates, you see other athletes doing well, and maybe you compare how long they've been doing the sport, how long they've been at a certain location, if it's their home track, and you're trying to use those as measurements to see where you should be. But a lot of my development in the early years was, let me just learn the sport, let me try to figure it out. And it wasn't until I actually broke off onto my own to go on tour, the Europa Cup, for the most part solo, and pretty much my fate in my own hands, and I started to make a name for myself on the circuit. That's when it started to kind of dial in. Like, okay, I'm starting to understand sliding because it's physics, and I did not take physics in school, so it's definitely a learning curve on the fly the whole time. So sliding sports in general will just humble you very quickly. You cannot have a hubris in this sport. There's just no room for it. You're going down a mile of ice at 70 plus miles an hour with your chin just an inch above the ice. Like, there's no room for air. There's no room for extra emotions that are not helping you move forward, if that makes sense. So it definitely took a more of an educator approach, or being to be educated. I wanted to learn more. So I think stepping back and being willing to be a student first before we start, getting extra competitive. Because I'm competitive now. Like, I am all about trying to find every bit of speed possible. And now that it's more because I have the awareness of it. Before, I didn't really know what I was trying to do. I just know you want to be the fastest one down, but how do you do it? That was the question. So being a student was the primary focus.
Now, also, too, obviously, switching gears a little bit, I don't see, at least in my experience of watching the Olympics, a lot of people of color doing skeleton. I've definitely seen bobsled. I've seen the 4, the 2. A lot for a long time, it's been that way. As far as you bringing your unique point of view of not only being a female, but being a female of color, were you welcome with open arms? Was that something you had to deal with? Any kind of issues? Was it a smooth transition? Kind of how was that process like for you?
So I like to say when I came in, I didn't really think of it as a problem. I think there were some hesitations around different people, but it's one of those things where it's like when your rookies come in general, like we want to know who's gonna stick around the longest, who's gonna be around for the long term, who's in it for the right reasons. And I was pretty quiet. I just wanted to learn. I didn't really think that I had much to contribute because I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm trying to watch everything I'm trying to learn. And I don't think originally it was noticeable in some spaces. It was just more like, oh, the new person, not anything more than that malicious. There was some moments when it got, and as the country got a little bit heated, well, very heated with Black Lives Matter or different cases like that, the stuff that was coming up socially, that did start to churn a little bit more as far as like different perspectives and different ways of thinking about how opportunities or things are being handled and dealt to certain people. So there's from time to time there's always remarks that come up implying certain things or assuming that things are done because of this. So it's been an eye opener. It's a very niche sport, so it's tough to not recognize that this is a very big thing. Winter sports in general is just not very predominantly. It's not as diverse as summer sports, if that makes sense. So um, essentially not taking it lying down, but at the same time not flying off the handle because of this is just the culture of certain things or how certain people operate, but obviously calling it out when you see it or addressing it and not allowing it to slide. Because there's other athletes who are younger than me or earlier years in their career, and some people feel like they can't speak up, but it's important for it isn't comfortable to talk about these things, but it's important to bring it up when it's necessary so that other people don't experience it as well.
No, definitely. That's one thing. Just following you through social media, that's one thing I definitely admire about you is that you're not afraid or ashamed, nor should you be, to kind of share your culture. I mean, from everything from your 688 suit to just some of the statements and things that you've made on social, it's very easy for anybody who follows you to know that you're not the kind of person that's going to allow disrespect to happen anyway to you or somebody else. So that's definitely something I've admired. As you continued your journey to learn the sport and get into skeleton, when did the bug pop in your ear that, hey, I think this Olympic thing is definitely possible for me?
I would have to say go back to the 2022 Olympics. So that was one of my earlier breakout years when I went to EC alone, and I was starting to get traction and get a better understanding. And the main thing that is told to athletes is you need to get to Europe. So I did. And essentially that just opens the door to more tracks, more exposure to different elements that you're going to experience and might be able to take back to different places to develop in that pathway of learning. So that year obviously was COVID, so it was very chaotic. And there are some people back home, and I appreciate their love and support. Like it's kind of feeding to the little bit, but oh, like you could do it. I was like, I don't know, the points weren't lining up, but I appreciate the sentiment because I know someone's got my back. And I think it was just recognizing that the experience was what was kind of inhibiting for a while, but now we're in this position where there is more experience, and the girls that I probably was competing with at the time were moving up to the World Cup level or racing higher, and then you do feel a little bit left behind because, like, well, I was competing with them. I might have beaten them one round, and they might have beaten me. We might have been close, but because of how the quotas work or how the allocation of sleds work, it didn't work out for us because there's so many people ahead of me ranked in the U.S. And there's some debates internally about those kind of things, but at the end of the day, the chips fell where they were, and I wasn't in the position as a contender. So seeing that and recognizing that, it's not because I'm not qualified, it's because there's things that are in my path. So I made it a big point going to the next quad that I was not going to leave any room for debate. I was not going to sit here and let there any hesitation or any questioning. There was going to be, without a shadow of doubt, I was going to be in that spot. And I think we did a good job. I think we did really well with just keeping it simple. And at the end of the day, it's sliding. So you want to enjoy, you want to have fun, but we did not come to play. We came to take a spot.
No, for sure. There's no doubt about that. So this past season that you just had, can you kind of, in your eyes and in your words, how would you recap the last season that you just experienced and kind of what are some of your goals moving forward to the next season?
Yeah, so my World Cup debut season, which was the 23-24 year, I finished really well. We had great momentum, 4 podium finishes, and I had my first gold at home track. So leading into pre-Olympic year, which is the 24-25 season, I think we still had high expectations, and we were really excited about just carrying momentum, just keep building. The front end of the season, though, I pushed championships, and I injured my knee at the competition. So then the next day I flew to Norway. So I'm nursing my knee injury solo. I don't have any sportsman access. I don't have anyone supporting me. So I'm just doing self-care on that. So it was
Wow.
a little hesitant, a little rocky, and I'm really concerned. So I'm like, this is my leg. This is my, I need to push with this. And it did make me have hesitation and doubt that, because I have all these people telling me you're only good, you're only finishing well because of your push. And so I was like, well, this is gonna test it for sure then. Like, let's see what happens. And fortunately, I think with my overzealousness and trying to do treatment, I think I helped accelerate it, at least placebo wise, to be in a better position. So I was able to use it more. So I would guard it in certain realms, like in the gym, but when it was time to go, I would go, and then I would just take care of it in the back end. So when it was time to race day, I would push as well as I could. I was still not quite myself, but it was workable. So I knew what I could be in the ballpark where I should be. And generally speaking, it was just an emotional battle because not only am I trying to, repeat results from the year previous or, building the momentum, there's still some internal things happening on the team that were kind of conflicting or a huge distraction. And so this is taking energy away. So eventually when we got to the halfway point, I had to just shut everyone down. I was like, I'm done. I can't do this. So I regrouped and went back to my old way of doing things, which is what I was doing back when I had no coaching or support on EC, their Europa Cup circuit. I did things my way. And from there, I went back to my normal results. I was finishing where I should be finishing. And I was in a position where I was in the medals and I make a mistake, so I fall back. But that's reasonable because I took a risk versus me just consistently being in the back end of the group. So it was a battle of trying to get back to what once was and doing things my way, protecting my way of operations. But once we got back there, we ended the regular season in Lillehammer World Cup with a silver. So like, this is great. So we can carry this momentum into world championships. And this time around, it was obviously, there's more pressure, there's more eyes, there's more visibility. but it was the most calm I felt. I felt prepared. I felt like things fell into place. I felt more support. My coaches had my back. Um, my team of athletes that I directly work with were really supportive and getting me ready for that. So it primed me really well, and I had that backing to be able to just confidently go into the race and do well. So I think it started off rocky. It started off a little questioning, some doubt about like, am I actually a good slider, or is it just because of my push? And I got my push back a little bit. I'm still not healed, but I also was improving my driving. So that was reinforced to me that we're on the right path. So we are progressing, even though we had a little hiccup along the way, but we're making our way into Olympic year swinging.
No, awesome. I'd love to hear that. That's a good perspective. I always like to hear from the athlete what they think, how they think their season past and upcoming went. So thank you for that. So another thing I want to talk about is, man, women's sports is exploding. I mean, it's always been on the up, but now it's really like in your face on the up. Like I like to say the phrase all the time: it's a bad day for haters of women in sports because it's not, the momentum's not stopping at all. So as
Nope.
somebody who's literally in it, as you start to see more brands and not just your sport, but all sports for women. How's it feel to be like you're in it? I mean, it's happening right now and you're seeing it all the time. I'm sure you're even seeing it from the level of support you're getting. Maybe people who a couple of years ago might have been like skeleton, a woman doing it. I'm not down with that, but now they're some of your biggest cheerleaders. As somebody who's in this renaissance, or not even renaissance, revolution of women in sports, how's it feel?
I think it's interesting because it's the sport itself was very male dominant as much as many sports were, and there's still some lingering entities that do hold on to that just because of where it's based out of and like culturally how it was structured. So it's always nice to see more women coming out to compete, more women trying the sport or just questioning like maybe I could be good, man, should give it a shot. So whenever I see new girls, I always like to embrace them and like, welcome in this and give them whatever I can support wise. If it's helping them with the line, if it's helping them understand certain concepts, and just the external support is more visibility. We have more people talking about women's sports and just different things, and the niche sports are starting to get some love. So it's nice because normally we don't really talk about the sliding sports until the Olympics, and then we kind of die down again until the next Olympics comes up. So if we're in the competition more in general, and then you slide in niche sports, it's a great win for everybody. So for me, it's been reassuring that we're not doing this in the dark. We're not out of the spotlight. It's just we had to just alter the spotlight a little bit, just shift it so that we can encompass everybody. So I think this is a good win for women's sports and sports in general, honestly, because it's just giving visibility where it should have been the whole time.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Now, taking things away from the skeleton track, when not working out or training, what can we find you do? How do you relax, kind of get your mind off of things and focus on other things so that you have a balance?
So I would like to say if I need a complete snap out of skeleton, I'm not associated at all. I'm reading a book of some kind. So I actually just finished the Lord of the Rings audiobook series.
Nothing
So I'm
wrong with that.
looking for another fantasy thing to kind of do a little escapism. But in the meantime, if I do need to keep my foot in the door a little bit, I created a nonprofit to help acquire more equipment for athletes. So that's been a fun game of trying to play with the customs and tariffs with international imports. But it kind of keeps me active, and it allows me to another way to give back to the athletes and build the team that I want to be a part of as we move to the next few quads.
Definitely want to follow up on that, man. That's awesome. Starting up your own nonprofit. What sparked that? Like, what made you say this is something that you wanted to do, and how'd you zero in on that being the kind of nonprofit you wanted to start?
Yeah, so it's called Project Push to Gold Fund, and essentially the mission is to give athletes access to equipment. When I first came in, we get the whole debrief about the sport, the history, what it could happen if things go well, like racing higher, world championships, Olympics. This all sounds great, but the initial is, well, you got to get on the track first, and there's to get on the track, there's some required equipment. You need a helmet, you need spikes, you need a sled, and you can't just go to a regular store down the road and get these things. You have to order them. And like, who do you talk to? And like, do you have to catch them at the right day? Are they on holiday? And because a lot of these guys are in Europe, so they have different timelines of work. They do different hours. They do different availability. And so it was always a struggle to try to find these pieces of equipment. And what I've noticed over the years, my early years before I made this nonprofit, was that we had new athletes who were coming in, very talented, very capable of pushing a sled in any capacity they wanted to. But there's this price of entry that's really deterring for athletes. Like, it's a very expensive sport to begin with, but now you're telling me not only do I need to pay for the sport, I got to go find my own equipment, and that doesn't make any sense. And so we lost a lot of talent in the initial years because it was just you're telling me you can't take care of the athletes, you know. So how do we help bridge that gap? And so while it'd be nice to drop deals left and right, the first step I think would be getting equipment. So make sure every athlete has a safe helmet that's not crashed out and handed down to three people. Having a burn vest for bobsledders, having brush spikes that are actually sharp and have tractions, because a lot of these brakemen, their job is to push a sled and they're pushing for time. And if they don't have traction, that's their result, and then they get penalized for it. So for me, because I've been in the sport a little bit longer than a lot of the athletes that are coming in these most recent years, I have these contacts that I've somehow come across, and the contacts in the Europe, they know me well enough, so I'm able to have regular communications, at least more thoroughly with them, and follow up with them, and to get those things. So it's been a way for me to centralize and create a space that we had an issue before of finding equipment for athletes. And it's been really good, but and then this year we're having a huge surge of a lot of rookies, so it makes my job a little more complicated, but it's a good problem to have because we have people that are actually interested in the sport.
No, that's very awesome. And we're definitely going to make sure we have a link to that nonprofit in the description if people want to check it out and also help out and support. So, looking ahead, this is almost the end of July. What do you have on tap for the rest of 2025 without giving away all your secrets? What do you have lined up for the rest of the year?
So we're definitely still training in the summertime. Yeah, we have to gym sprints and the normal stuff athletes got to do. But systematically, as we get ready to the season, we're looking to, make sure everything is dialed in, equipment's ready, logistics are booked, paperwork is done. So it's a lot of the admin things that you don't really think about going into a big year, but it's just making sure that we do everything right. Because this is my first time around trying to qualify for the game, so I want to make sure I don't miss anything. And then from there, as we get ready into the season, getting on ice, getting that exposure, getting comfortable traveling, and make sure I have all my needs met. So one of the things that I've noticed as I started coming up and traveling to Europe is that while we do travel and carry and cover our own baggage and stuff like that, it's important to have the things that make you comfortable or happy. So I do splurge a little bit more and get heavier bags or get more baggage just because I want to make sure I have my recovery stuff, my modalities I need for rehab, or just little snacks that I have like little guilty pleasures of, just to kind of as a pick me up in the middle of the season. So it's squirreling those away, having them ready to go. So when it's time to pack everything up, I'm not still searching for it. So a lot of it's not fun, but it's just preparing for the season.
Cool, cool, cool. Well, man, I'm excited for you. I'll tell you that for much. You definitely have a fan in me and a fan in Team MBS Media. Before we let you get out of here, the floor is yours. Is there anything you want to share with your fans, people who might not know a lot about the sport, people that you might want to recognize that have helped you along your way? I will give the floor to you.
I will continue on the conversation about diversity in our sport. Back in 2000, when the Lake Placid track was built, they were still trying to get women's bobsled and skeleton in the Olympics. It still wasn't quite officially there yet, but eventually it did, obviously, because we did really well as a home Olympics. We had a lot of hardware actually. And I want to highlight Vanetta Flowers. That's someone that we should all know, because she's the first Black woman in winter sport to get a gold medal at the Olympic level. And she was the first person that we visually saw that was like, hey, like, we have a space, there's a platform for us here. And that was the person that got Alana Myers Taylor in. And then Alana Myers Taylor had great success coming in and doing well from transitioning from a brakeman to a pilot. And then she started recruiting everybody. So Alana Myers was my person in, and Vanetta Flowers was her. So there's this passing the torch on to the next generation of other athletes to help build the diversity, to build the visibility that this space is not just, to cater to the people who can afford it. It should be available to everyone who can do it or wants to do it. And then we find a way to make sure we keep everybody here, not limit them because of the disparity in financial means or exposure to the sport. So my goal is to be that link to someone else in the upcoming years, to bring them in to help build our platform, to build our space in this community, because it's a really cool sport. You get to travel and see the world. You get to experience a lot of different things you wouldn't normally get to do, but there is a barrier because it's not really accessible. So how do we make it more accessible? And that's, I think, an evolution of from Vanetta Flowers to Alana to me. We're trying to figure out how to make it more accessible to other people who normally wouldn't be seeing these sports outside of the Olympics. So I think we're definitely making waves in the sport. We're here to stay. We're here to grow, and we want to make sure that anyone who wants to experience it at all, even as a spectator or just get on a sled itself, we want everyone to have that opportunity.
No, that's very cool. Much respect to you for that. And I did have one more question I wanted to ask. It was literally I wrote it down as my first question because I was just curious. Is there any chance you would ever consider going back or dipping your toe back into the world of track and field, or is that chapter closed for you?
I'm not going to say it's closed. I am going to say I've been looking longingly, especially with how things are moving right now with Athlos and the Grand Slam.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool to see these different disciplines getting highlights now, and even the throwing event. That's a whole thing. So it's not just these big track meets, which are really cool. I think that's a good vibe, but highlighting athletes to give them opportunities to be able to showcase what they do in front of designated crowds in different areas. I think it's really cool, but I don't think I can keep up with the best anymore. So I might have to go towards like the master's class or a little bit older. But I definitely do. I do miss those days, and I definitely keep saying like when I'm done with skeleton, I'm going to slim down a bit and go back to my track weight because I feel like that was my most comfortable. I felt fast. I felt light, and that's something I do miss. But obviously, with skeleton being a gravity sport, it's a little bit more my interest to be a little bit heavier.
No, definitely it makes sense. Well, Mystique, I want to thank you so much for your time and kind of sharing a little bit about your journey. And like I said before, I look forward to seeing you on that Olympic stage and you showcasing what you can do to the rest of the world. But thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me. I'm glad that we got to catch up after all this time. So it's good we got to talk.
Absolutely. I'll talk to you down the road. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.